We tend to think of history as this long line of famous people and big dramatic events. But what if the real story, the real power, is being driven by something else entirely? Today, we're diving into the unseen engines that have been shaping our world all along.
Okay, that sounds like the start of a pretty weird joke, right? You've got this beautiful, ancient piece of art, a gridlocked highway belching fumes, and a trade deal from 2 centuries ago. What on earth could possibly connect them?
And that's the big idea. They are all the result of these deep, fundamental human drives. You can think of them like powerful engines that are always running, sometimes pushing us forward, sometimes causing massive destruction, and always connecting us in ways we never expect. We're going to look at 4 of them today. Our first engine is this incredibly powerful, innate need that we all have to create. And this isn't just about making something that looks nice. It's about forging who we are, building our communities, and making sense of the world. Just take a look at this. This is a Tsimshian mask from the 1800s. It was carved from wood, and it was a central part of these huge winter ceremonies. I mean, it is an absolutely stunning piece of art, but for the people who made it, it was so much more. It was a living piece of their culture and their spirit. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. When Europeans first saw objects like this, mask, they didn't really have a category for them. They often just called them curiosities, exotic little trinkets from a so-called primitive world. But for the indigenous people who created them, this was art, with a capital A, no question about it. To try and fix that massive misunderstanding, a lot of scholars now use the term First American art. It sounds like a simple change, but it's actually huge. It puts this work right back where it belongs, not as some kind of side note, but as the foundational, the primary artistic tradition of this continent, going back thousands of years before anyone else arrived. And this yoke at Sundance basket is a perfect example of how this art works. The patterns, the little figures holding hands, that's not just decoration, it's a language. It tells stories, it holds beliefs, it's the entire worldview of a community woven together. It's identity that you can literally hold in your hands. All right, let's switch gears from the engine of creation to the one that completely reshapes our physical world, invention. Technology is probably the most obvious force of change, and boy, did the automobile change things. But you might be surprised to learn that its total world domination was never a sure thing.
So picture this. It's the year 1900, and you're in the market for a new car. You have 3 main options, and gasoline, it would have been your last choice, by a lot. Steam and electric cars were way more popular. They were cleaner, they were quieter, they were the clear market leaders.
How in the world did the noisy, smelly, and frankly difficult gasoline engine come from behind and completely take over? It all came down to one crucial invention, the electric self-starter. See, before that, you had to start a gas car with this massive, difficult, and sometimes bone-breaking hand crank. The self-starter got rid of that completely. It made gas cars just as easy to use as the others, and boom, just like that, their biggest advantage was gone. Once that problem was solved, Henry Ford's assembly line just took over. By 1920, his factories were cranking out more than 1 million Model Ts every single year. The world was never, ever going to be the same. The car wasn't just a machine anymore, it was a world-changing force.
But that invention came with some absolutely staggering hidden costs. Today, the US has about 5% of the world's population, but we own over 1/3 of its cars. This has fundamentally altered our planet, from the smog in our air to the very design of our cities, where, get this, 1/3 of the land is just paved over for our vehicles. It's a heavy price that's now fueling the next great invention, the move back to electric.
So, while we humans are busy inventing things, nature has its own powerful engine, destruction. And forces like earthquakes, well, they don't just knock down our buildings. They put our entire societies to the test and reveal just how fragile we can be.
For most of human history, we had no idea what made the ground shake. The best guess came from the Greek philosopher Aristotle, who thought it was basically big pockets of air trapped underground. It wasn't until the 20th century that we finally understood the mind-blowing truth. It's the slow, constant, violent grinding of massive tectonic plates.
To really feel the impact of this force, let's go back to 1995. The place is Kobe, Japan. A huge, modern port city, a real symbol of industrial power. It was about to face the ultimate test.
The city was rocked by a massive 6.9 magnitude earthquake, and the terrifying part wasn't just its strength. The epicenter wasn't miles away out in the ocean.
It was directly underneath 1.5 million people.
The result was absolutely catastrophic. In just 20 seconds, one of the most modern and prepared nations on Earth was brought to its knees. The human cost was staggering. More than 5,000 people lost their lives.
And this is where we see how our own human choices can turn a disaster into an even greater tragedy. In 2003, a slightly weaker earthquake hit Bam, Iran. But because most of the buildings there were made of simple, unreinforced mud brick, the death toll was exponentially higher, an estimated 43,000 people. It's just a brutal reminder that destruction isn't just about what nature throws at us, but about how we choose to build our world.
Okay, for our final engine, let's look at a force that pulls people together, the drive to connect through trade and commerce. For as long as we've been around, the merchant has been this key figure, building bridges across oceans and cultures, all in the name of business.
This quote is about a man you've probably never heard of. His name was Hokwa. He was a Chinese merchant in the early 1800s, and as the leader of the Hong merchants in Guangzhou, he basically controlled a huge chunk of all the trade happening between China and the West. He made a fortune that is almost impossible to imagine today.
But the Hong merchants were so much more than just businessmen. See, at the time, Chinese officials refused to deal with foreigners directly. So these guys had to do everything. They were the sole middlemen, they were the customs agents, they had to guarantee the good behavior of every foreigner, and they even had to act as diplomats. They were the absolute key that unlocked global trade.
So, we've looked at creation, invention, destruction, and connection. But the real story of history is that these engines never run in isolation. They are constantly interacting. Invention can change what we create. Destruction can sever the connections we've built. They're all pushing and pulling against each other all the time.
And these forces aren't just something from a history book. They are churning away right now, all around us, every single day. So that brings me to the final question, and this one is for you. When you look at the world today, which of these engines, creation, invention, destruction, or connection, do you think is pushing the hardest and shaping our future the most?